Full of regret, our MC remembers that smiling hustler telling him to sign a document without thinking twice. With the pen in his hand, the guy hesitates and sweats bullets, totally unsure if he's making the right call. Inside a fancy coffee shop, the kid questions if this shady deal is actually secure. Right on cue, his so-called buddy slams the table, scolding our MC and telling him not to overthink a single thing. Spitting absolute nonsense, the suit swears he would never scam a high school friend and that the profit is 100% guaranteed. Ready to close the trap, the weasel extends his hand, promising the money will double up easily. To make the blackmail even worse, the scumbag brings up the day he saw the young man taking a call from his boss at his own father's funeral. Caught in his grief, the poor guy lowers his head, his expression completely wrecked by the memory. With his blood boiling over them using his late dad in the conversation, our boy swallows his anger purely out of having zero options. With nowhere left to run, his only way out was to trust this guy's fake goodwill and sign that cursed contract. And just like that, he gets played like a total chump in that jerk's evil master plan. 2 years go by and the door to tiny, completely trashed apartment slowly creeps open. Straight to the bathroom, our boy rushes in and hugs the toilet, tossing his cookies like there's no tomorrow. Sadly, his fresh takeout went straight down the drain, and the poor dude cries over the cash he just wasted for nothing. Surrounded by empty bottles and trash, the 28-year-old is living a thoroughly miserable reality. Drowning in debt he can never pay off, the sufferer grumbles that his scammer friend vanished off the face of the earth over a year ago. With only 5 hours of sleep left before his side hustle starts, he decides to read a bit to escape this garbage life. Holding a thick book, the kid promises himself he's only going to read for half an hour tops. Already laying in bed with the story completely memorized, the loyal reader gets ready for another trip into fantasy land. This little escape valve is the only thing that pulls a faint smile out of our overworked guy. Suddenly, a weird noise makes the young man jump out of his skin on the mattress. Through the open window, shiny black feathers start floating into his room out of nowhere in the dead of night. Confused by this bizarre sight, a sudden nosebleed starts trickling down the guy's face. Out of the blue, a violent cough makes the kid hack up crimson, and pure panic takes over his eyes. Staining the pages of his novel with a red puddle, this whole situation spirals completely out of control. Overcome by unbearable pain, the poor guy feels like his heart is about to explode right out of his chest. Unable to catch a single breath of air, he collapses on the bed while the mysterious book glows with a purple aura. Basically on his last leg, the young man curses his own luck, crying over this trash-tier life. Sprawled out on his ruined mattress, our MC wonders if he's really about to log out of life in such a useless way. But deep down in his soul, the anger boils over, and the guy refuses to accept his end peacefully. As his final thought, the face of that cursed scammer pops into his mind, bringing an absurd amount of hatred. Completely swallowed by the dark feathers, the guy passes out, super frustrated that he never got his payback. In the middle of the darkness, a glitched-out system prompt confirms a quest and promises a special skill. Jolting back to life, the kid gasps for all the air in the world, his eyes glowing an intense blue. Completely disoriented, he wakes up in a room that looks like a period-piece movie set, thinking he's having a fever dream. Slowly, his vision focuses, and it takes a solid minute for it to click on what the heck just happened. Surrounded by massive, luxurious architecture, our intruder is left way too confused. Face to face with fancy chandeliers and high-end furniture, the formerly broke dude tries to figure out what kind of absurd palace this is. Sweating bullets, a bizarre detail outside catches the newcomer's attention. Perched in a super threatening way, a crow with red eyes is staring him down. Glowing in the night sky, 3 differently colored moons prove that Earth is definitely a thing of the past. In a sudden, aggressive move, the freaky creatures flap their wings and take off, making an absolute racket. Cutting through the night sky, the birds form a sinister dark cloud flying away from the mansion. Thanks to that sight, the kid finally puts the puzzle pieces together and realizes exactly where he landed. Looking out over a massive medieval city under the colorful moonlight, the truth hits him right in the face. Catching his own reflection in the window glass, our hero notices that this handsome face is definitely not his own. While he's still marveling at his own good looks, a female voice knocks on the door calling for some Prince Aberin. Gripped by absolute panic, the fake noble backs up, tripping over the furniture and yells for the person not to come in. Disobeying the order, the maid opens the door and gets the scare of a lifetime at the scene. Sprawled out on the floor with his legs in the air, our clumsy guy groans in pain from the nasty fall. The girl quickly says she'll come back later, while our MC mentally celebrates guessing the body's name correctly. With a headache from the tumble, the confirmation hits hard. He dropped right into his favorite story. Memories from the novel prove that he reincarnated as the exact seventh prince of this dark empire. To his absolute misery, the reincarnated guy remembers that this trash character meets a brutal and super early demise. Sitting depressed on the windowsill, the poor dude mourns his terrible luck of taking over a fodder NPC who gets wiped out right at the start. Interrupting his existential crisis, a suited-up butler with dark glasses announces his arrival. Right away, the fake lord starts shaking in his boots, recognizing the name of the main villain's official right-hand lapdog. Stepping through the main door, the butler says he personally came to bring dinner along with the little maid. With a smooth tone, the suit adjusts his glasses and asks if the master's health has improved. Not wanting to get a game over on day one, the kid swallows his fear and decides to act exactly like the original owner of the body. Forcing a fake smile, he pretends he's right as rain, and the old man nods, looking satisfied. Wasting zero time, the advisor orders the poor girl to set the table ASAP. But our boy finds it super sketchy that the girl is shaking like a leaf, plus the food literally looks like dog kibble. In a rare act of kindness, our hero tries to grab the teapot to serve himself and accidentally bumps the maid's hand. Instantly, hot tea splashes all over the table, making the vibe in the room incredibly tense. Absolutely horrified, the girl looks like she just saw the Grim Reaper up close. Dropping to her knees on the wet floor, the poor thing begs for mercy in tears, leaving our MC totally confused. Acting like a frantic mess, the girl scrubs the mess, totally convinced she's about to get executed on the spot. Then it clicks and our hero facepalms, remembering the rotten reputation of this body's original owner. Being the #1 scumbag, the original prince was a sadistic monster who eliminated servants over the smallest mistakes. Despite the crying, the fake noble sits down to eat but gets interrupted yet again. Looking completely cynical, the assistant steps up holding a thick parchment packed with hidden agendas. Without much warning, the jerk shoves the paperwork right onto the plate, demanding an urgent signature. Grabbing the quill aggressively, the kid instantly deduces that a useless prince would never handle important finances. Right off the bat, our hero spots that the document is a blatant scam to steal funds from the estate's budget. But the smug assistant gets away with this stuff because he's directly related to the all-powerful empress of the kingdom. Since the body's original owner was a total blockhead, the kid hesitates, wondering if he should sign it to follow the plot perfectly. Full of attitude, the suit asks if the master is so dumb he forgot how to spell his own name. Ticked off by the uncalled-for disrespect, the reincarnated guy curses his luck for landing in the body of a total pushover. Cynical to the bone, the mini-villain runs the exact same script as before, telling the Lord not to think and just sign. Immediately, the memory of that cursed scam from his past life comes rushing back to haunt the kid's mind. That fake, smiling face of his ex-friend echoes in his head with the exact same manipulative catchphrase. Consumed by rage, our boy grits his teeth, realizing this situation is identical to the one that ruined his life. But this time, the story is going to be different, and the sufferer swears to himself he won't be played for a fool ever again. Without dragging it out, the hero questions the math on the paperwork and calls out the embezzlement right to his face. Caught totally off guard, the lapdog gives a fake little smile, acting surprised and saying he underestimated the boss' intelligence. Keeping his cool, the scumbag changes the subject and casually threatens him, telling him to sign before the food gets cold. But before the weasel can finish his arrogant sentence, a loud crash shatters the tense mood in the room. Terrified by the noise, the poor maid cowers on the floor, bracing for the worst. Right at the advisor's feet, the hot teapot shatters into pieces, making a massive mess. Totally in shock, the suit stammers without a clue while the Lord smoothly plays it off, saying his hand just slipped. With his outfit completely stained, the lackey boils with rage while our kid remembers that the guy's connection to the Empress is practically non-existent. Acting like it's the most normal thing in the world, the imposter sits back in his armchair, radiating absolute superiority. Blinded by fury, the four-eyed trash can barely process the target's bizarre change in attitude. Ready to rewrite his fate, the young man blames the employee for distracting him and tells him to take responsibility for the mess. Tired of being a loser, the kid promises to use all his meta-knowledge of the novel to survive and take over this place. Holding his ground, our MC demands action from the butler, who is now sweating cold, unsure of how to react. With a simple flick of his finger, the noble points at the spilled tea on the crazy expensive rug. In a chilling tone, our boy gives a crystal-clear order to clean it up, proving he's not a wimp anymore. Inside this massive universe, the royal family is treated like a group of unquestionable deities. Rocking glowing blonde hair and absurd powers, they are the ultimate symbol of nobility and perfection. Obviously, the one sad exception to this golden rule was none other than the seventh prince. Stuck with plain black hair and a reputation for being an idiot, the guy was always the black sheep and the bottom tier of the royals. Fuming on the inside, the suit remembers the fat bribes he paid just to avoid being stuck serving a loser like him. But the psychological pressure wins out, and the jerk drops to his knees next to the maid, swallowing his pride. Acting like a scared little puppy, the lapdog wipes the floor and announces the rug cleaning is done. Rushing to get out of there, the lackey stands up, but ends up bumping into the last teacup left on the edge of the table. For the second time, china shatters, and the smug dude panics while the master comments that he needs more practice cleaning. With his eyes glowing a blood-red hue, the kid demands the cleaning be redone, and faster this time. Genuinely desperate, the old man tries to drop the Empress name as a final blackmail attempt to escape the room. Knowing full well it was a pure bluff, the hero decides to put this insect in his place once and for all. Suddenly, the kid points at the terrified servant and tells the poor girl to cover her ears tightly. In a brutal move, the prince drops a heavy threat, promising to take her fingers if she hears a single word. In the blink of an eye, the girl clamps her hands over her head, scared to death by the terrifying warning. Right after, the main character whispers mysterious and dark words straight toward the butler. With every syllable dropped into the air, the lackey's expression deflates from anger to pure dread. Completely pale and sweating buckets, the traitor looks like he just saw the devil himself. A few days later, the castle maids gossip in the courtyard about the lord's creepy behavior change. Between scrubs, the women agree that the vibe in the mansion has gotten way heavier and more terrifying. Despite the fear, they celebrate the fact that the prince locked himself in his room and basically ghosted everyone lately. Mid-conversation, one of them points out that little Anna was supposed to be on cleaning duty, and the girl freezes instantly. Far away from that drama, inside the dusty library, the mood seems totally peaceful and chill. Holding a cup of tea, our MC celebrates that his scare tactics worked perfectly to keep the nosy folks away. Even the snobby lapdog stopped bothering him, completely vanishing from the palace so he wouldn't get another dish thrown at his face. Cold and calculated, the former broke guy knows he has exactly 3 years of a head start before his official checkout time in the novel's timeline. After all, the dude was obsessed with the story and read that beat-up book dozens of times in his past life. Thanks to his flawless meta-knowledge, our boy decides to just enjoy the royal luxury until the real hero actually shows up. Staring up at the open blue sky, he even jokes about how awesome it would be to have wings and fly over everything. With a bizarre snap, a sharp demonic pain interrupts the young man's thoughts without zero warning. Once again, the fancy teacup shatters on the floor, slipping from his trembling hands. Dropping to his knees, the fake noble feels his own body catch fire from the inside out in pure agony. This time, the pain is infinitely worse than the day he passed away in the real world, frying every single nerve. To make things worse, a knock on the door announces the cleaning lady's arrival, while the prince mentally begs for an ambulance. Sneaking in quietly, the servant sighs in relief, thinking the room was completely empty. After taking 2 steps, the girl freezes, noticing the mess of porcelain scattered across the expensive wooden floor. Sad about the waste, the poor thing gathers the pieces, calculating that this could feed her whole family for a month. Suddenly, a weird scratching noise coming from under the table grabs the curious cleaner's attention. Out of nowhere, a giant crow with scarlet eyes jumps out of the shadows, scaring the girl half to death. Stumbling backward, she almost drops her broom, totally spooked by the bad-omened bird. Without overthinking it, the crazy girl scoops up the huge bird, warning it that the owner of this room is a terrible monster. Totally offended, the bird thinks to himself, refusing to believe the absolute disrespect he just endured. Then it clicks and the kid realizes that by some crazy glitch, he literally turned into a smelly bird. Trying to protect the animal from the phantom boss' wrath, the girl swings her arms, getting ready to chuck the bird out the open window. Desperate at her stupidity, the fake prince screams in his head, demanding she doesn't let him go under any circumstances. Deaf to his coin, the cleaning lady yeets the bird from the top of the massive tower straight toward the cliff. Free-falling, the kid flaps around like a maniac, thinking he's about to become pavement paste at the bottom of the forest. Fighting gravity, the feathered guy desperately tries to remember how the heck you actually flap wings. Consumed by panic, his survival instincts scream out, refusing to accept such a dumb end. Inches from smashing his beak on the ground, a miracle happens, and his body finally pulls up, slicing through the forest wind. Noticing dark claws popping out of nowhere, our MC gets a jump scare midair. Flying free in the blue sky, the guy celebrates his escape but breaks a sweat, wondering if hell ever turned back to normal. During the night, under the glow of 3 colorful moons, the castle rests in total silence. Panting and leaning against the furniture, the hero breathes a sigh of relief after finally turning back into a human after multiple tests. Completely shook, our boy thinks about how insane it is to shape-shift just using brain power. Trying to find some logic, the kid links the ability to that creepy bird from his first day. With a firm grip on the doorknob, the fake noble locks his room to protect his biggest secret. Staring at his reflection, the kid realizes this glitch could totally destroy the official plot. Suddenly, knocks cut through the room, announcing that the succession ritual is about to kick off. With a sharp glare, the main character gears up for the crucial moment. Every month, the Emperor and his elite bloodline gather for a ruthless and hardcore test. Weighed down by the oppressive vibe, the hero takes his spot at the absolute worst end of the table. Rocking bright blonde hair, the siblings treat the young man like a freak sitting in the dark. Sick of the passive-aggressive jabs, the kid locks eyes with his bully. Flashing a sadistic smile, the 8th prince humiliates his half-brother without an ounce of shame. Brushing off the disrespect, our boy just looks at the duo as low-tier side villains. Instantly, the first princess pulls the spoiled brat back and restores order in the room. Scanning the chairs, the former broke guy decodes the perfect power hierarchy among the kids. Gathering blue flames in his hands, the second in line flexes the magic running through the royal veins. Quickly, the guy's brain pieces together that being born without this magic is what wrecked this character's sanity. In the middle of the tension, the sound of heavy military boots announces the alpha of the pack. Slowly, the monstrous figure with white hair steps onto the stage. Step by step, the Emperor carries pure glory and absolute destruction in his hands. Being the law himself, the old man skips the boring rituals and orders the test to begin. Placing his hand on the ancient slab, the king boots up the magic machine. Fast as lightning, the stone glows, revealing that the table actually measures the user's raw power. Tearing across the furniture from end to end, the light beam races furiously. Hitting the absolute limit, the energy shocks the kid since it totally breaks the novel's script. Without stalling, the patriarch tosses the dangerous challenge to his heirs. Sitting quietly in the corner, our boy just smiles, waiting for the cutscene to play out. Raising his hand, the firstborn steps up to the main spot. According to the unwritten rule, the kid notes that only the number 1 guy gets to stand there. After smacking the stone, the golden child pumps out pure mana to crush the competition. Striking a godlike pose, the blonde claims his spot as the absolute king of the hill. Suddenly, the whole facade crumbles and the dude coughs up black liquid. Fully panicking, the younger brother freezes in total shock. Choking on his own coughs, the heir struggles while the nobles scream for a medic. In the middle of absolute chaos, only the fake lord smiles, knowing exactly how the system works. Practically throwing up his organs, the Emperor's golden boy knocks on heaven's door. Like a dark notification, the official messy takedown festival begins. At the bottom of the food chain, magic is what defines your power in a lethal way. Acting as living weapons, the passed-out guy controls the seas, and his rival burns everything to crisp. Reading the room coldly, the hero deduces that the sick dude is just a weakling wearing a strong guy's mask. Away from the drama, the kid realizes the timeline just fast-forwarded the events. Dropping his smile, our MC gets chills, noticing the poison triggered way too early. Confused by the plot holes, the formerly doomed guy can't figure out why he even got the power to fly. Suspicious of everything, our boy swears to expose the mastermind behind this poisoning. Back in his gloomy room, a whip cracks in a total sneak attack. Stepping out with an open shirt, the sick prince accuses the intruder of being a hired thug. Keeping his cool, the kid claps back, saying if he wanted to, the guy would already be missing his head. Hitting the big guy right in his ego, our hero brags about breaching the fortress without leaving a single trace. Blinded by rage, the soon-to-be-goner steps forward, crushing broken glass under his boots. Refusing to accept his pathetic weakness, the wounded lion punches the mirror backward. The exact second he summons his blue magic, an internal shockwaves cuts the air. Dropping like a sack of potatoes, the firstborn coughs, literally destroying his own veins. In constant panic, the monster cries as he feels the spell shredding his body from the inside. Stumbling to run away from the truth, the blonde roars that he refuses to be a useless nobody. Grabbing a luxury hookah, the guy lies to himself, pretending he's indestructible. As he tries to inhale the smoke, his brother's icy voice tells him to put it out if he wants to stay breathing. In a violent flinch, the expensive piece goes flying and shatters against the wall. Yelling non-stop, the suit demands to know the invasion route, only to get hit with the fact that climbing up was a breeze. Doubting the flex, the heir loses his mind while the intruder skips straight to business. Dropping toxic bait, the fake lord states as a fact that the old doctors botched the blood test. After the surgical warning, a manic smile creeps onto the sick guy's face. Exploding into pure insanity, the giant tries to flip the script to intimidate him. Seeing right through the paper mask, our boy claps for the brave little theater act. Buying into his own fanfiction, the villain accuses the kid of offering a cure in exchange for hush money. Stepping up for the final blow, the target readies his ultimate attack. Without twitching a single muscle, the hero issues a 7-day deadline until his terrible end. Paralyzed by the verdict, the aggressor freezes his hand mid-swing. Sitting down with absolute class, our MC removes himself from the conspiracy. With a subtle threat, the kid claims the invisible mastermind will wipe out the brothers' entire existence. Flipping the vibe of the room, the young man demands blind obedience and absolute focus. Completely broken by terror, the dying guy finally begs for a lifeline. Flying out in his bird skin, the strategist mocks the garbage security, escaping in his crow form. Having the blonde guy in the palm of his hand, our MC mentally celebrates that he's gonna use his rival as a puppet for a long time. Flying free through the dark rain, the kid thinks about how this bird-shifting power comes in super clutch for traveling. Since he was already outside anyway, the creepy bird decides to make the most of the night. Wasting zero time, the creature dives, cutting through the skies at top speed. By the next morning, the sun is blazing over the castle, bringing an annoying problem to deal with. Stressing out at the bedroom door, the poor maid is sweating bullets since the boss vanished and hasn't eaten in 2 days. Overcome by panic, the girl even imagines her own head on the chopping block if the lord kicked the bucket on her watch. Pounding heavily on the wood, the cleaning lady screams, asking if His Majesty is still breathing. Suddenly, the door swings open, revealing the MC looking bored out of his mind, while the servant trips from the jump scare and faceplants hard. In the violent wipeout, the poor thing shatters all the dishes from the tray onto the floor. To make the disaster worse, the hot tea soaks our boy's fancy shoes, leaving the girl totally paralyzed. Staring down at the mess, the kid doesn't show a single reaction, keeping his ice-cold posture. Bawling her eyes out, the maid begs for forgiveness, swearing she deserves the worst for her mistake. In total despair, the poor girl tries to explain herself, saying she only wanted to help the sick master. With a dark glare, the former broke dude asks how she's going to pay for the damage, while the human mop begs him to spare her family. With zero pity, the guy tells her to clean it all up in exactly 5 minutes and get out of his sight. Turning his back, the noble declares that nobody is allowed near his room without a VIP invite, and complains about how annoying all this sacrificing my life talk is. A whole month after the blonde brothers' bizarre bleeding incident, the hero's room is still stacked with books. Meanwhile, toxic gossip takes over the hallways, claiming the future emperor lost his powers. Fake and calculating, the suited guy knows this weakness just paved the way for the vulture siblings to make a move for the throne. To shut down the rumors, the big blonde begged his dad to bump up the hunting tournament, ignoring the fact that it wasn't supposed to happen for another 6 months. Riding his horse, our guy wonders if these crazy changes in the castle also messed up the real hero's timeline out there. Since today is the big day of the event, the fake lord plans to find this main character, hand over an item and lay low. Out of nowhere, the arrogant brother starts talking trash, calling the youngest an insect. Riding side by side, the sick dude makes fun of our boy's dark mount, while the MC just notes how much more aggressive his rival got off script. Ignoring the tantrum, the former loser totally ghosts the crazy guy, leaving the heir yelling at the wind. Petting his animal, the young man smiles, admitting he prefers black a million times over some flashy golden beast. Arriving at the destination, the kid's face turns serious as he stares down the challenge. Right in front of them, a massive forest marks the starting line of the real chaos. Standing tall in the middle of the green, the enormous Tower of Beginnings waits for the annual opening ritual. Off his saddle, our boy knows the real party only starts when the show-off firstborn wraps up his little performance. Fully aware of everything, the emperor knows this is just dirty political theater disguised as a sport. With a deep voice, the patriarch tells his problem child to step up and handle the ritual. Right behind him, one of the brothers flashes a fake smile and asks if the big blonde already picked out his victory prize. Full of swagger, the sick guy guarantees the win is in the bag and that the highly coveted wish is already his. Standing by the stairs under the gaze of dozens of nobles, the heir gets ready to rub his magic in the haters' faces. Hiding in the crowd, the suits whisper about the king's favorite losing his juice, terrified of getting caught talking trash. Nervous near the altar, the blonde swallows hard, praying the youngest kid's mystery treatment actually worked. Locked onto the scene, our boy stares intensely at the stage, waiting to see if his scheme paid off. Staring into the basin, the sick guy swears he's gonna slice his brother to bits if this fails. Behind his little smirk, the manipulator notices his rival sweating and mentally tells him to chill out. According to their shady deal, the former broke guy guaranteed that if he just followed the rules, the show would go off without a hitch. With a violent boom, blasts of magical water shoot up, tearing through the forest sky. High above the whole arena, the wave of blue energy creates an absolutely insane visual flex. Like an out-of-control hurricane, the magic proves the guy's strength is back to 100%. Thanks to the wind force, the NPCs almost get blown away, having to hold down their own clothes. Untouched in the middle of the storm, our boy just watches the mess with a cold stare. Behind glowing eyes, the big blonde reclaims his spot as the undisputed top dog of the empire. Flashing an insane smile, he proves the Raja name still strikes fear into everyone. Arms stretched out, the madman screams that the throne is his by divine right. Giant and terrifying, a beast made of water with razor-sharp teeth chomps at the air above the altar. Taller than the tower itself, the aquatic monster flexes the air's brute force. Up in the sky, magic droplets fall like hail, wrapping up the flex session. Soaked to the bone, the vassals stand there with their jaws on the floor, unable to believe what they just saw. Completely shook, an old knight admits that the royal family's power is seriously unfair. Panting but victorious, the suit listens to the crowd scream his name, proving he just shut everyone up. In a flashback, the kid tosses a black rock into the sick guy's hand, who thinks the whole thing is a joke. Straight up, the fake noble warns him the mineral sucks out rotten energy and tells him to take the cure or leave it. Furious, the blonde swallows his pride because he knows his life literally depends on the youngest sibling. Aware of his own cheat code, our MC celebrates using an endgame item from the book to buy his rival's temporary loyalty. Nearby, a cowardly assistant cowers on the ground, carrying a ridiculously heavy backpack. Looking down, the kid checks if his special delivery arrived in one piece. Going full aggro, the hero corners the guy, calling him a completely useless tool. Full of excuses, the Four Eyes defends himself, blaming the boss's demonic horse that almost wiped everyone out. Right after, the loud blast of a horn cuts across the field, announcing the starting line. Raising his hand to the sun, the king gives the green light for the official hunt. Speeding like absolute maniacs, the armored knights rush the woods, kicking off the wild demolition derby. Along the way, two randoms actually dream about the prize, but know the royals always steal the show. Chilling in the back, our boy decides to lay low since he couldn't care less about the tournament trophies. Far away, the armored ex-commander chats with his partner about the little show from earlier. Hyped about the magic, the nerdy sidekick glazes hard, calling it a literal divine miracle. Thrilled, the commander figures out the theater act was just to silence the haters, while his partner shakes at the dangerous talk. Panicking, the scaredy cat tells his boss to shut his mouth before they get cancelled, but the old man promises the coast is clear. Full of street smarts, the veteran warrior flexes that he didn't survive this long by being a careless idiot. Heading into the brush, the MC pushes forward on his dark beast, straight into the deep zones of the green hell. Checking the map, our MC notices the forest is split into 3 danger zones, scaling from tiny critters up to the massive beasts. From the original story, he knows the first prince is supposed to hand the emperor a golden fox, but the book totally skipped over where to actually find the thing. Exactly because of this plot hole, our boy flew his feathers off in crow form, scouting the entire map. Connecting the dots that the hunter washed his hands in water, the fake noble figures the golden creature has to be near the southwest lake. Full of mischief, the slick guy decides to get there first and hijack the loot while riding his edgy horse. Happy with his plan, he lugs around a super heavy bag, mentally thanking Sane's lapdog for doing the dirty work as a pack mule. With the bag full of rocks slamming against the saddle, the weight is practically dragging the mount into the dirt. Out of nowhere, the demonic horse slams the brakes, almost launching the rider straight into the dust. Jumping off quickly, the hero lands on the ground, clueless as to why this giant beast is suddenly acting like a coward. In total panic, the animal shakes its head non-stop, while the guy asks if there's some freaky monster nearby. Completely spooked, the beast refuses to take a single step further into the weeds. Then it clicks, and the kid finally realizes the reason for the random tantrum. Looking at the ridiculous cargo, he wonders if he overloaded the bag with too many rocks. Ticked off, our boy yanks the reins with brute force, cursing out the wimpy animal for not handling a little extra weight. Boiling with rage, the owner threatens to cut its food rations if this stubbornness keeps ruining his road trip. Facing the heavy threat, the beast stomps its hoof, fed up with the master's nonsense. At the end of the day, the prince himself ends up hauling the backpack, looking like a pack mule on the trail. Sweating cold and with his back killing him, the poor dude curses his luck, regretting the massive mess he got himself into. Based on the time in the sun, he should already have a full inventory of loot to flex at the tournament. Far from there, the ex-commander and his loyal nerd sidekick stroll peacefully, taking in the forest sights. With an exhausted sigh, the gray-haired vet admits old age hit him like a truck, and his glory days are way in the rearview mirror. Glazing his boss as usual, the Four Eyes swears up and down that the master is still the biggest living legend in the empire. In the helper's mind, the old man was an absolute demon in armor, bathed in the red splash of fallen enemies. Cutting off the annoying hype, the veteran just points at the castle and asks if the nerd has ever seen the royals up close. With a dark tone, the old man guarantees that true, absolute power runs exclusively in the blue blood of that family. Guarding the throne for thousands of years, his bloodline knows all too well that the emperors are treated like untouchable gods. Way back in the day, the veteran's own dad drilled this lesson into him, demanding blind loyalty to the crown while riding in a carriage. Through the fancy vehicle's window, the old man proudly showed off the trade empire that funded the royals' lavish lifestyle. Right after, the talk shifted to the temple's divine power, keeping the kid's brain locked on the strict hierarchy. Suddenly, the imperial carriage slams the brakes, spooking the horses and the passengers in the middle of the street. Outside, the guard tells them to lock the doors while he quickly tries to clean up the mess on the cobblestones. By total accident, the heavy wheel flattened the skinny body of a homeless kid sleeping on the capital streets. In a brutal, messy situation, the crimson stain splatters onto the carriage's premium wood without a second thought. Completely ice cold, the dad just assumes the little street rat was trying to steal the temple's sacred taxes. Used to other people's misery, the leader notes that a broke kid expiring on the street is the most normal thing in this empire. Shook by the brutal impact, the young heir tries to peek at the damage, pressing his face to the glass. Frozen in terror, the boy's eyes go wide at the senseless end of the kid. Blocking the traumatic view, the old man yanks the boy back, telling him to shut his mouth and not ask questions. With zero remorse, the dad whispers that the squashed life literally meant absolutely nothing. Back in the present inside the forest, the gray-haired vet looks up, remembering that the poor kid couldn't have been older than 10 years old. Eaten alive by built-up guilt, he thinks about the dark pit of evil holding up the beautiful fake front of this nation. Breaking the heavy silence, the Four Eyes groans under the giant backpack's weight, asking to focus on today's hunt. Snapping out of his dark trance, the master apologizes and mentions he knows the perfect spawn point for a rare golden fox. Somewhere else in the woods, our MC is practically coughing up a lung from exhaustion, lugging that cursed bag of rocks. Stuck in human form because of the luggage, he's terrified of losing the ex-commander's trail and ruining the whole master plan. Even though he's in the supposedly weak zone, red flags pop up in his head warning him about sneaky predators. Suddenly, an aggressive rustling in the bushes makes the fake noble hold his breath instantly. In a moment of pure stupidity, he remembers he left his weapons at the palace just because he was too lazy to carry them. With no options, the hustler chucks a heavy rock into the thick brush, only to see his edgy horse immediately bail on him. Right after, a dull thud breaks the silence, revealing the rock landed square on the face of the nerd assistant who was just walking out. Horrified by the accidental friendly fire, the hero recognizes the NPC's goofy hair the very next second. Collapsing unconscious into the dirt, the Four Eyes makes the veteran drop everything and scream his name in total panic. Sweating bullets, our boy quickly realizes he just knocked out the loyal sidekick of the exact target he was supposed to trick. Completely out cold, the poor Tolan lies there with his eyes rolled back while a red trickle runs down a nasty cut on his cheek. With his mouth completely dry, the kid sees the colossal screw-up of accidentally attacking this specific duo. Furious at the cowardly cheap shot, the legendary warrior draws his massive sword, radiating a heavy boss-level aura. Being literally the future mentor of the novel's actual main character, this white-haired old guy has the muscle to solo the entire empire. Hugging a thick tree trunk, the scared kid mentally begs the one-man army not to sniff out his amateur hiding spot. According to the original playbook, the trickster was going to grab the golden fox first and shamelessly accuse the old man of trying to steal from a royal. Using his fake VIP status, the armed threat would force the commander to carry the heavy rock bag like a pack mule for the rest of the event. But that cursed accidental headshot totally wrecked the flawless strat, and now the faker has become the main target of the forest. Inspecting the weapon left in the dirt, the veteran claims that absurdly heavy rock was thrown with maximum intent to eliminate. Cold as ice on the battlefield, the old man scans the brush, suspecting a hit squad was sent to wipe him off the map. Groaning in pain on the dirty leaves, the downed assistant tries to open his eyes and catch his breath. Acting like a shield, the master lowers his guard for a split second, demanding his wounded student report any details about the mystery sniper. With his legs shaking, the hero realizes that getting branded as an assassin in the first major tournament would ruin his pacifist disguise forever. Stuttering and dizzy, the assaulted lapdog forces his scrambled brain to try and serve up the culprit on a silver platter. Almost having a heart attack, our boy bites his lip, desperately looking for an escape route before the final strike. With a fresh red trickle slicing down his face, the nerd shifts in the grass, getting ready to spit the raw truth. By some massive miracle for our scared hustler, the NPC drops his head, crying out an apology for not seeing absolutely anything. Accepting his ally's sudden blindness, the gray-haired vet tells him to zip it and promises to serve up justice with his own hands. Flashing a lethal predator glare, the ex-general narrows his eyes, swearing to dice up whatever scumbag set this up. At the very first miraculous window of distraction, the kid grabs the heavy bag, fixes his posture, and takes off in a blind sprint for survival. Hearing the frantic crunch of breaking branches, the old man turns toward the target and charges like a vengeful lightning bolt. Running into the unknown, the fake prince sprints like a maniac through the giant plants, praying to every god he doesn't get turned into royal mincemeat today. Completely out of breath, our boy complains that his stamina is already in the trash from hauling that way too heavy bag. Dripping in sweat and exhausted, the hustler looks back, thinking he finally lost the armored boomer. Caught off guard by the enemy's speed, the guy panics when he spots the retired commander right there with his blade drawn. Screaming for answers, the brutal warrior warns him that no intruder ever escapes the Great Duke's clutches. Desperate during the chase, the fake prince thinks about ditching the rock bag and turning into a crow right there, missing his horse like crazy. Quickly, he scraps the flying idea and focuses on getting faster legs to disappear from the scene. Channeling all his magic into his shins, a weird glow starts taking over the hero's footsteps. Right behind him, the veteran's eyes go wide, noticing the target hit the gas and started shape-shifting right in the middle of the woods. After slicing the air with his sword, the old man grumbles in frustration, thinking his own eyesight failed him during the chase. Standing in an empty clearing, the elite hunter gives up the run, wondering where the heck his prey vanished to. High up, the kid celebrates how light his body feels, fully believing he turned back into a bird without realizing the truth. Suddenly, the heavy sound of hooves stomping the dirt makes the guy think his runaway mount came back. Squinting hard, the kid sees the sky reflected in a massive, wild eyeball. Unable to believe his own glitch, our boy rears up on his front legs, realizing he literally turned into a freaking black horse. Shook by his new skill, the newly transformed guy steps on the grass, trying to process this absolute nonsense. Far away from this mess, the Fire Prince asks if his older brother really took down that monster all by himself. Standing over the carcass of a massive, terrifying bear, the water firstborn smiles arrogantly, demanding respect. Blinded by admiration, the second in line hypes up his sibling's tournament win and asks what wish Hell asked the king for. With an evil smile painted on his face, the big blonde confirms he has a really cruel plan ready to go. Back in the forest, the ex-horse rests in his human form, leaning against a giant tree trunk. Completely frustrated, the poor dude buries his face in his hands, accepting that the plan is totally ruined. Facing the wind, the kid complains about losing that stupid bag of rocks in the middle of that crazy sprint. Flat on his back, the hustler kicks the air, furious at his own stupidity for dropping the main item. Sprawled out on the soft grass, the sufferer cries fake tears, wondering how much bad luck can fit into a single day. Jumping up quickly, the strategist decides to stop whining and retraces his own steps at full speed to find the item. Hiding in the shadows, the nerdy assistant wakes up dizzy and bleeding right when the master finally gets back from the failed hunt. Worried about his lackey's health, the commander asks if the headshot caused any serious brain damage. Visibly ashamed, the experienced warrior takes the blame for letting the cowardly sniper slip away alive. All of a sudden, the old man points at the bag dumped in the dirt, revealing he found the item on the way back. Curious, the Four Eyes inspects the fancy leather bag, completely confused as to why it's stuffed with rocks. Stepping out of hiding, the main character drops a hint, acting like this is all just a bad joke. With a fake gasp, the kid points at the bag, instantly grabbing the attention of the injured duo. Staring at the boy's face, both of their eyes pop out of their skulls, totally shocked to see a royal out here. Instantly, the servant duo drops to their knees and bows their heads in a formal greeting to the seventh heir. Acting completely cynical, our MC stands right in front of them and shamelessly asks if that lost backpack belongs to him. With a dark scowl and a terrifying tone, the fake noble accuses the two of stealing his property. Defending his own clean honor, the gray-haired vet sweats buckets, promising he just bumped into the item in the bushes. To dial up the terror, the kid threatens to slash the thief's wrists, while the Duke bets his family's life, swearing he's innocent. Looking right at the wounded assistant, the hero plays dumb and asks why there's red liquid running down the poor guy's face. Petrified, the little nerd can't even open his mouth, completely intimidated by the monarch's heavy aura. In our boy's head, the replay of the exact moment he threw that boulder plays on a constant loop without mercy. In his fresh memory, the rock crushes the poor guy's face, causing the master a massive jump scare. Along with that comes the flashback of the old man charging in with his sword, thirsty for enemy blood. Brutally, the prince yanks the injured guy's hair back, calling the lackey a rude rat for staying quiet. With his eyes wide open, the assistant groans in pain, while the maniac asks to borrow a sword to fix the guy's head right there. Frozen in extreme panic, the humiliated dude tries to beg for his life in front of the executioner. Out of pure desperation, the commander asks for mercy and promises to punish the lapdog personally, leaving our MC with a victorious smirk. Cold and calculating, the kid praises the old man's absolute dog-like loyalty, ignoring his student's pain for the sake of the empire. With zero chill, the boy decrees that the Duke's kid will also grow up to be just another attacked dog on the crown's leash. Hearing this absolute disrespect, the nerd's eyes widen, grasping the deep cruelty in the heir's words. With his bag back, the hustler claims this meetup was destined by fate and shoves the heavy load directly into the old man's hands. Hiding behind a red killer aura, the temporary boss orders the lackey to never drop the bag, even if he perishes. Trapped under the weight of the rocks, the veteran takes the order silently, completely unable to argue. Surrendering to the Empire's power, the commander accepts the glorious task, lowering his eyes in blind obedience. Satisfied with his psychological torture, the main character turns his back, waving happily and celebrating how light he feels without the bag. Happy on the inside, the faker admits his acting was totally cringe, but it got the job done by planting the seed of chaos. Collapsed in the dirt, the nerd cries out of guilt, but the master tells him to shut his mouth and be glad his arms are still attached. Snapping back to reality, the assistant announces he finally realized who the crazy jerk that threw the rock was. Cutting straight to the chase, the old man shuts down the conversation, confirming that the cowardly sniper and the seventh prince are the exact same cursed person. Furious, the veteran forbids his partner from ever spilling that deadly secret, burying his hatred deep in his chest. Walking slowly, our MC remembers that the noble duke actually pulls off a massive treason the following year because of his son's tragic end. Master of strategy, the hustler justifies that he needed to fast-track the veteran's hatred to kickstart the war during this current tournament. In the middle of the field, the first prince finally drops his real wish, which is focused on developing the main area of the sacred temple. Spitting hate speech, the blonde maniac promises to wipe out all the homeless folks and vagabonds infesting the dirty capital. Far away, the protagonist's dark eyes confirm that the vigilante duke's fate is already sealed with no way out. Holding his shame, the armored old man marches through the forest, feeling his blood boil with pure disgust and resentment. Through his meta-knowledge, our boy visualizes the commander's future bloody rebellion against the blue-blooded gods of this cruel empire. Gliding straight through the orange late afternoon sky, a bird dives into the trees, wrapping up its mysterious air patrol. Hiding in the brush and shifting back to human, the escape artist double-checks a dozen times to make sure nobody caught his illegal landing. Bathed in the camp's glowing lights, the fake lord feels a tiny bit of guilt for playing dirty, but quickly accepts his role as the absolute number one villain of the story. Focused on his next moves, the kid steps out of the bushes, ready to stir the pot at the finish line of this deadly event. Right in front of him, the first princess pops up out of nowhere with a fake smile, acting suspicious about her brother taking a solo hike in the woods. Shook to his core, the poor guy freezes completely, hating the fact that he bumped into the boss Viper in the middle of nowhere. Keeping his posture, our MC hits her with a stiff bow, but the blonde cuts the act, calling him her beloved little brother. Acting like a movie detective, the snake grills her brother about his missing horse, forcing the liar to shove a lame excuse about taking a walk for fresh air down her throat. Completely out of breath, our boy complains that his stamina is totally shot from hauling that ridiculously heavy bag. Drenched in sweat and exhausted, the hustler looks back, thinking he actually ditched the armored boomer. Caught completely off guard by the enemy's agility, the guy panics when he catches the retired ex-commander pulling a sharp blade out of nowhere. Screaming threats, the brutal warrior warns that no intruder makes it out of the fetus family's grip alive. Pressured on the run, the fake prince thinks about dropping the weight and turning into a crow right there, while crying over his missing horse. Luckily, he drops the idea super fast and focuses on channeling power into his legs to vanish from the map. Pumping pure dark magic into his boots, a mysterious blur starts tearing through the bushes mid-sprint. Right behind him, the veteran's eyes bulge, noticing the target hit the gas and started glitching his own form into the darkness. Slicing the wind with his blade, the old man grumbles in frustration, thinking his vision is failing right at the clutch moment. Standing in a muddy clearing, the elite hunter drops the chase and wonders where the heck his prey disappeared to. Way up high, the runaway celebrates his body suddenly feeling light, convinced he triggered his bird form again. Out of nowhere, the sound of horse hooves hitting the wet dirt makes the former broke guy think his missing ride came back to help. Focusing his sight right on his own face, the guy sees the blue sky reflected in a massive, totally wild eyeball. Unable to believe the genetic miracle, the new animal rears up on its front legs, realizing the bizarre transformation turned him into a whole ride. Shook by this plot hole, the newly transformed guy steps on the soft grass, trying to process this silent nonsense. Way far from this mess, the younger brother asks if the blonde kid actually put that monster in the dirt by himself. Standing over the crushed carcass of a formidable bear, the water firstborn smiles arrogantly, flexing his power for the duo. Blinded by admiration, the family lapdog hypes up his relative's tournament win, and immediately wants to know what insane wish hell asked the king for. With a twisted smile locked on his face, the big blonde confirms he has a cruel scheme already lined up and ready to drop. Back in the deep woods, the hustler rests in his original form, leaning against a 1,000-year-old tree trunk. Completely annoyed, the poor guy runs his fingers through his hair, accepting that his master plan sank straight into the mud. Facing the breeze, the kid regrets dropping the essential bag full of rocks during his desperate run from the enemy blade. Flat on his back in the grass, the sufferer kicks the air, furious at his own stupidity for losing the loot in a panic. Sprawled out on the ground, the fake lord cries dry tears, asking how much bad luck can fit into one short day. Hopping up with perfect aim, the strategist ditches his laziness and decides to retrace his steps to hunt down the lost item in the brush. Under the wide shadows, the nerdy assistant wakes up dizzy and completely covered in red when the boss comes back empty-handed. Worried about the physical trauma, the commander asks if the hit to the head caused irreversible damage to the kid's brain. Visibly embarrassed, the gray-haired warrior takes the blame for letting the criminal vanish like smoke. Almost instantly, the old man points to the bag stuffed with rocks, proving he found the trash dumped on the trail. Curious about the mystery, the Four Eyes pokes at the bag's fancy leather, completely clueless as to why anyone would carry heavy garbage. Hiding in the bushes, the main character watches and thinks out loud, suspecting this could turn into a dangerous joke. With a dramatic yell, the hero jumps out of hiding, jump-scaring the patched-up duo who were totally focused on their newfound loot. Facing that dark figure, the blood in both their veins turns to ice, paralyzed by the shock of bumping into royalty out in the middle of nowhere. Immediately, military rank takes over, and both master and servant drop to their knees in the dirt in a desperate bow. Super cynical and acting all stuck up, our MC plays dumb, asking how his gear ended up in their hands. With a dark scowl and pure terror, the hustler immediately accuses the vassals of stealing from the crown. Defending his squeaky clean honor, the veteran sweats like crazy, promising he just picked up the lost loot in the brush. Making the torture even worse, the fake prince hints at severe punishments like chopping off hands, forcing the duke to bet his own bloodline's nightmare as an alibi. Hitting right at the weak spot, the sneaky kid turns to the assistant and asks about the fresh red liquid dripping down his chubby cheek. Petrified, the nerdy boy bites his tongue, swallowing hard at the supreme monarch's invisible threat. Through his quick memory, the highlight reel of the brutal throw plays in the main character's mind completely uncensored. Along with the images, the rock busting the poor guy's face haunts his conscience as a pure athletic miscalculation. In parallel, the old boomer's meltdown, charging in to dice people up with a giant blade, just adds to the morning's chaos. Brutally and without hesitation, the fake noble yanks the green hair back, calling the servant a rude pest for ignoring his question. With his eyeballs practically popping out in distress, the crushed guy groans loudly while the attacker demands a borrowed knife to poke him right there. Frozen in pure shock, the nerd's lip quivers as he tries to verbally dodge the merciless executioner. Driven by loyalty, the military man steps in on his knees, demanding to clean up his student's mess and serving his own soul on a silver platter to the sadist. Ice-cold and looking totally soulless, the kid claps for the state dog's submissive show, noting he completely forgot his bleeding student. To twist the psychological knife one last time, the boy decrees that the soldier's son will just be another hunting dog for the monarchy. Hearing this dark talk, the lackey processes the sharp cruelty hiding in the future emperor's vocal cords. Happy to have his gear back, the hustler grabs the heavy straps and confirms that this unlucky meetup was written in the stars. Behind his red killer aura, the villain orders his prey to hold the bag forever, under threat of total annihilation. Trapped by the hellish command, the knight takes the rocks to his chest, locking his face in a choked-up silence. Surrendering to the royal badge, the warrior lowers his head, confirming Hellhall the useless anchor without complaining. Cheerful that the emotional massacre is over, our boy casually raises his hand, thanking the universe for the lightweight feeling of not pulling a wagon. Away from their eyes, the manipulator makes a face, feeling super cringe about his fake acting, but stays focused on the little evil seed he needed to plant. Face down in the dirt, the wounded guy drops a tearful apology, only to get smacked down by his mentor, telling him to be grateful they didn't get officially amputated. Suddenly, the little nerd gets a clutch flashback, confirming the hidden identity of the crazy rock sniper. Without dragging it out, his nervous tongue serves the seventh prince up on a silver platter for the old general's bottled-up rage. Furious beyond belief, the veteran soldier cuts his partner off, demanding his lips stay sealed to avoid a free treason trial. Walking calmly, our MC mentally recaps that the noble duke actually pulls a suicidal rebellion next year in the novel's original timeline. Aware of the time glitch, the faker reveals he had to shatter the guy's sanity today to bring the chaos early, right into this silly competition. Under the blazing sun, the blonde water mage proudly spits out his wish to redesign the sacred temple's turf. Dropping elitist lines, the blonde maniac suggests a sweep, clearing all beggars and refugees out of the capital without blinking once. Hidden in the shadows, the protagonist's eyes sharpen, figuring out that the Protector Duke's doomed future is officially locked in with no way back. Boiling with disgust, the old man marches along holding the useless bag, swallowing the next king's bloody speech with pure hatred. Thanks to brain spoilers, the young man predicts the ex-general raising his flag against the unforgiving son of the castle's divine tyranny. Under that hot sun, a bird-shaped shadow dives straight into the treetops, breaking the chill vibe of the tournament. Turning back into a guy in the middle of the dirty weeds, the acrobat double-checks every single bush, making sure nobody caught his mutation. Staring at the sea of golden tents on the horizon, the imposter faces his own sins, officially claiming the title of the story's #1 villain. Switching gears, the strategist preps his cold mind for the closing ceremony of the deadly event without dropping his act. Like a ghost, the first princess pops into his line of sight, spitting venom with a sweet smile, acting suspicious about his missing sidekick and horse. Shocked down to the root of his last black hair, the poor guy's brain completely stalls as he bumps heads with the head viper of this madhouse. Playing the political game, the hero drops a shallow hello, only to get blocked by the wicked witch who demands forced family bonding in the evening light. Hitting him with an interrogation, the woman corners her brother about his suspiciously missing ride, forcing the liar to shove his lame "I was taking a walk" excuse down her throat. Right in the middle of the crowd, our boy smiles mentally, announcing the show is about to start, hoping a certain someone is watching from the front row. Meanwhile, way far from there, a mysterious guy in a brown cloak crouches by the riverbed to casually fill his canteen. Suddenly, the liquid starts glowing with a creepy blue energy, leaving the stranger completely confused by the whole situation. Jumping back, the hooded guy ducks to the ground, wondering what kind of magic just surrounded him out of nowhere. But the real show is happening on the horizon, where a massive water explosion rips through the sky, while our fake lord wonders if his rival is getting a front row seat to the royals' raw power and Duke Fetus's downfall. Right under the hood, a sharp golden eye is revealed, confirming that this is none other than Radel, the actual main character of this crazy story.